All right. All right. All right. All right. All right.
You haven't done this in a while.
Uh, well, welcome in.
Hi, Justin. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well.
Seen anything crazy recently?
I've seen a lot of crazy stuff recently, to be quite honest with you. Both really actual crazy and crazy mind blowing. Well, it's all mind blowing, to be honest. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy right now.
I spent Friday evening talking a existing client out of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to start a new business, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life here? Stop.
It's all crazy, folks. It's all crazy. It's all crazy. All right, welcome in here to Leap to Scale. This is the podcast that helps service companies and service operators figure out how to scale past that headcount growth using technology and discussing what the future technology might look like for those of you who are operating those kind of companies and help you use it to leap ahead of your competition. My name is Justin Davis here with my esteemed co-host.
Hi, I'm Greg Ross-Munro. Happy Friday, Justin. You doing
Happy
well?
Friday. Happy Friday.
What do
I'm sorry that my video is not great. I had a little technical difficulties, but it's serviceable.
Do you ever find that when you have technical difficulties in front of other people, it's so much more embarrassing? And
It is.
they're like,
It is. Yeah.
"Oh, aren't you a computer guy or something?" Eh,
It's funny. My fiance and I just recently got engaged, and earlier today.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I was doing the requisite um status update on the social medias, right? So I was in Facebook and I was updating this, and I couldn't see how to tag her in it. I was like, I know you can do that. It just does. I did. Oh, this makes sense to me. So I didn't tag her in it, and which I then got notified about later. And I was like, honestly, I said, I don't know how to do this in Facebook. I don't know how. And like, she had to walk me through it. And like at that moment, I was like, I should know better. I like it's my job to understand interfaces.
Anytime somebody tells me about like, "Oh, there's something wrong with my printer," uh, I'll give almost anything a shot. I'll
Yeah.
take a shot at the interface or using your random operating system, but printers, and just run away screaming. Well, I mean, great segue, by the way, for our topic today is your fact that you are theoretically an expert in user interface design. Are you not? That's what you've been doing
But
with your
that's
life.
what people say. I mean, that's what I it has been billed that I
It says it on
know.
your LinkedIn, something like
It
that.
does say that on my LinkedIn.
Is
I've done a little bit
basically
of it. I have an opinion or two about it.
basically true.
Um,
Yeah.
and
So if you're the expert, I have. I mean, somewhat of a contrived question because this is a podcast and we do have to do some planning for these things. We can't just crack a beer and start talking about them. But I've been thinking about this a lot. I think you've been thinking about this a lot, which is what is the future of an interface going to look like? And what does an interface really even mean? What's the future for UX? And I don't just mean that um, for the way that your customers will interface with you. Like, are they going to go to your website? And that's the interface, right? I also mean like, how are you going to interact with your software? Like your booking tool, your booking software. Is that going to change considering the great AI revolution, which we currently find ourselves in the middle of. And I think I'd like to ask you first. I mean, is there like a good definition of what a UI is or UX is? A user experience, user interface. Like, how do you
yeah, I
define an
mean,
interface, right?
yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think of an interface as that surface that mediates an interaction. And in this particular case, it's a service that mediates an interaction between a person and a machine, a computer specifically.
Well,
Um,
might be listening to this or watching this on an interface, right? And then when you
right.
say surface, you mean like a screen?
A screen or a metaphorical surface, right? An interface also might be if I call you or if I talk to you in person. Let's say that you and I mean, if we talk about this like
You
conceptually,
are talking to me in person.
but if you and I were talking face to face in meat life,
Ah,
right?
okay. Meat.
Then there is, I guess maybe you would say there is no interface. We could have an argument about it, right? Because there's nothing that's mediating it. But as soon as you and I are not between each other, we need something that carries the signal between us.
Gotcha. So then
And
when you so like the phone itself could be a
the
surface.
phone itself has an interface
Well,
because,
the and the stuff in between is the plumbing, and then the like device is the surface.
right, yeah, yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah. And so I think, I think when you think about the interface as it applies to businesses, I kind of think that maybe there are like four big eras, maybe, of interface. I'm thinking of this. I may be miscounting it in my head. We're about to find out. And the original sort of business interface um, was paper and pen sitting on your desk, right? The 1950s and 60s with ledgers and journals and all of this that sat in file folders in a computer. That's the original interface, as it were, right? I guess if we want to stretch the metaphor, is what you
Typewriters.
got your work done on, the
Yeah.
surface that you got your work
Oh, okay.
on, right? Um, that's why I'm stretching it a little bit, but whatever. Then we had the computing revolution, let's call it, where it started to become popular in office environments. Let's call that the 80s broadly, right? And so that's like the number two. And now we had spreadsheets on these boxes on our things. So kind of replicating, if you look at a lot of the early software, the interface is very what we call skeuomorphic. It represents a lot of real life objects very closely, right? And so if you look at a lot of the software design from the 80s and 90s, what you see is stuff that tries to mimic what was sitting on the desk, the paper, right? So that's kind of the second era of interface. When the web came out in the, let's call it, or not when the web first came out in like the early mid 90s, but when the web really started, it when SaaS really became a thing, in, let's call it, the early 2000s or so, mid 2000s. You had kind of a third layer or a third type of era, or third era of interface, I guess now, where a lot of work moved to the browser as interface, and then it was mediated by web design now instead of desktop applications, right? So we kind of moved everything onto the cloud. There was a fourth, probably, which was the mobile era, which introduced a new type of interface that was complementary in nature to what we have with the computer, but still like afforded kind of new capabilities, new expectations, new ways to think about interaction, all of this. I think now we have a fifth major era of interaction, which is this AI interact era, where the interface really, I think it's actually not yet defined what the interface is going to be yet. I think the interface is made up of text and voice and chat as a modality. Chat's not the interface necessarily, but I think that it is going to centralize, and what we're going to talk about in a second, into these areas or surfaces, if you want to talk about where work does get done in a different way. And we'll look back on this the same way we look back on spreadsheet software, and the same way we look back on SaaS and all of that kind of thing, I think.
So, so here's an interesting thought. If so, you're kind of suggesting that the interfaces that we use, that we're used to like pointing and clicking around, are uh, are intent based largely, right? Like we know what we want to get the thing to do. So I'm thinking about like my kitchen, right? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go into my kitchen and I'm gonna get the food out of the fridge, and I'm gonna grab a pan out of the cabinet and I'm gonna cook it on the stove. And I use all these surfaces, these things that I interact with, to be able to make dinner. And I kind of get the feeling that you're saying in the future, some sort of like AI tool that I'm going to use is not going to like, I'm not saying the kitchen metaphor is stretching here a little bit, but it's like, uh, it's going to say, hey, dinner's going to be ready at 7. Is that okay with you? And do you have any allergies? Like that's the difference, right?
Hmm.
So if that's the difference where like the AI is is doing all these things and you're just interacting with it for input and I guess error handling, like the human in the middle stuff, that's like mainly what we're gonna start doing. Like all the stuff will be automated. All the stuff will just be through a voice prompt or a a chat system. Then ultimately, and I don't know, I, mean, I haven't thought this thing through, but like, what is does that mean that like we don't compete on features anymore in software?
Yeah, I don't think you do. I think that this is the end of the. I had like this 20 years ago. I had like some theory about like the era, like the kind of phases of software goes through or markets of software go through. And the second one of those is what I call the feature arms race, where like people try to keep up with each other based on features, right? Oh, your thing does that, well then I'll build that. And we see this in like any kind of maturing, especially SaaS market.
It's the number one
Um,
thing that what drives everything. It's like, and customers come back and say, "Oh, I
yeah,
love your product, but I needed to do if it did this,
XYZ, right,
if it did
right, right.
this, it would be so much better." And then the problem is you've got to go and build not only the software behind it to make it do that, you've got to then build these interfaces to do it as well.
Right, right, and you have to integrate it with all your existing stuff and work it in and all of that kind of thing, and so I think that there's a world that's coming that is not as far off as we think, that where features get very, very inexpensive potentially to create, and then in that world, it really you have to start to compete in real different ways, I think.
So okay, like then let, I run a I run a chain of barbershops, right? And I want to look at all my bookings in like today. I'm guessing that I've got 5 barbershops and each one's got 10 chairs in it. And I can look at a piece of software and I've got like it looks like a spreadsheet and it shows the booking rates of each of these of the shops and I can see which ones are the most profitable and I can see which ones I need to maybe like go and help out more or I need to call the manager and complain and or where I need to maybe put more marketing dollars and I can see that all in like one nice view and I can click on stuff and I've spent a lot of time learning the software. Like I took a class maybe or like an online course and they sold this just for me for barbershops. Like how would something like that change in the future? Do you really think that the head of the barbershop is going to just be in something that looks like ChatGPT?
Yeah, I do. In a lot of ways, I think so. I think that over the next I mean, I'll be conservative and I'll say decade, although I think it's gonna happen maybe faster than that, but I also have another calendar reminder coming up that, um,
Yeah,
may
we have I think we have
that
money
I am
for
that I
things.
am sometimes a little
Yeah.
aggressive on.
Just for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Justin bet me and some friends that paralegals wouldn't be a thing, and I don't know, like, it would no longer be a career path, or they wouldn't exist in like 9 months or something. We put that in the calendar, so that date is coming up quickly, and there are still
Very
paralegals.
unfortunate that you did that.
Yeah,
I thought that was way further out. I think I said 2 years. I think that was actually 2
was
years
that 2 years
ago,
ago?
and
Okay.
I think 2 years went
This
way faster
top
than I
tip,
expected.
by the way, ladies and gentlemen, unrelated to any professional services or services related technology is if somebody says makes a prediction, be like, when do you think it's going to happen? Just put in your calendar, write down what the prediction was, invite them to it, and 99% of the time they'll be
I've said a lot, like, I think that, like, UIs are a hack. I think that nobody wants to use software. You don't wanna learn things. You don't wanna go to that training. You don't wanna learn that. You don't wanna submit the help ticket. You don't wanna do that. You just want the information. You just wanna say, "Hey, can you help me know if my shops are full? Which one of my shops, do I need to work on capacity? Do I have any staffing issues that I need to look out for the next couple of weeks?" That kind of thing. You just want answers to questions, and I think that what the new sort of AI surface and
wrong.
I'm including not just the ChatGPTs of the world, because I don't think this is going to happen necessarily in like what looks like ChatGPT today. I think this is going to happen in a new type of interface. And I think we're starting to see some peaks at what it might look like with Anthropic's new release, Claude Cowork, that honestly, like a lot of people haven't even seen yet. And also things like Claude Code and things that are kind of splintering off that direction, it's getting a lot more sophisticated than kind of just chat and get answers. And I think it'll look more like that. And I think it will slowly become the place where you sit and do a lot of your work.
Yeah, I can feel, I mean, I'm deep in this stuff at the moment, right? Like I have Claude Code up, and I actually just use Cursor a lot, actually, just to build stuff, and even like everything from reports to whatever. I just like I'm just like using code now as a, not to write software, but like just use tools like in where I would have used a spreadsheet 6 months ago or a year ago. I'm now like just more likely to just not even use the
Yeah.
enabled. Not I'm not even using the AI enabled spreadsheets. I'm going first to the LLM interfaces or to like something like Cursor, and
Right. And,
then
and I'm going to pause you real quick.
yeah,
And what I think is really fascinating about that is because the spreadsheets like Excel or even the AI powered ones are just an interface on top of code. Because the best way, because all the spreadsheet is letting you do is write code without having to write the code. When you select the cell, it's writing code for you. And so you just took that layer off, took the interface off, and you just went directly to the machine.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so here is the next version of my question, which is that when I do that, I will end up ultimately with a large chunk of data, right? Which then to visualize whatnot, I copy and paste or upload the CSV or the Excel file back into the spreadsheet so that I can interact with it in the way that I like to use spreadsheets. Now, my question then is, do you envision spreadsheets going away? Or do you envision spreadsheets still being used that way for the foreseeable future? Or do you imagine like, I don't know if I think the word's like compostable, whatever interfaces, like where the machine that you're using is like, oh,
Yeah.
you need a spreadsheet interface.
Like a
I'm just gonna
view, almost like a database view.
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
like invent that out of whole cloth. I'm just gonna like present you with the data in a full spreadsheet interface inside the same application. The my hesitancy in, and I know you might say like the compostable whatever might be the way to go, and I can see that for novel situations, but there's like spreadsheets are old, right?
I
Like
agree.
they
Spreadsheets aren't going anywhere.
okay.
Spreadsheets are cockroaches. I actually don't think spreadsheets will ever go away. I think they
Cockroaches
will be
and the
here
cockroaches
longer
use
than the
the
earth
software.
somehow. I think the AI bots will use spreadsheets long after we're gone.
I think that could be the title of this episode. Spreadsheets are the cockroaches of software.
So yeah, I don't think they'll ever go away. And I also think that you could definitely make an argument, and I think a very good argument, that there there are times that certain types of data are better viewed in certain types of interfaces. And if
My
you are
calendar.
looking at a lot of tabular data, numerical data, that kind of thing, it is better to look at it in a spreadsheet. Just better to. But if you are, say, answering a question and you're saying, how do I take all this tabular data and then understand what my sales forecast is going to look like in 2 months? Maybe that's where it switches over to the LLM. So it'll be a more blended thing. And I think inside your LLM, you will get those composable interfaces that are um, like a little peek, a little view into your larger data set that you could go back and deal with if you want to, but you just won't have to as much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. I mean, I guess the one question then that people might be thinking is there's a lot of human time that is spent in front of these tools, and there are people whose job it is to run the CRM at their company, right? Uh, There's like or the content management person at the company. It, if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, that's my job. My job security is in like how well I know this software versus, oh, well, now anybody can just go and say, make a web page that has this data. Here's the PDF that we need to upload. I need this on the website. And the thing will just do it. Um, what do those people end up doing? I mean, like, I, I feel like, I feel like no software is perfect, and it's probably never going to be perfect.
Mhm.
So does everyone just become an exception handler? Like, do we all become QA and bug handlers, and everything else is
Um,
automated away from us?
think that for a lot of people, yes. I'll tell you an experience that I had this week actually that I've reflected on that made me think about this because I build a lot of prototypes and things like that. But I've launched a smattering of little things out on the web over the past year or so. Never built a mobile app, um, tip to tail using AI. So I decided to do that this week. And I did not look at the code. I have no idea. I know it's written in React Native. I couldn't tell you how it's structured. No idea. Didn't look at any of it. Did I completely 100% hands off autonomously, whatever. But the app works end to end perfectly. Ran some security stuff on it, fixed some things, did all of that. The app works. I've tried to beat it up. Seems fine. Gonna release it in the App Store. During that process, I did two things. I didn't tell it how to code. I didn't tell it what to do. I did two things. One, I did QA, and it was very valuable because it couldn't do QA for some reasons. I probably didn't have the tool set up correctly to do that, but also there were some things that just wouldn't catch. And two, really importantly, I had to tell it how to design a product and how to put together a product experience because the initial thing that it put out was sort of AI sloppy, just kind of like, okay, it's, I guess, yes, technically it does what I asked you for it to do, but it doesn't have any soul or life to it. And so a lot of the iteration was me pushing life into it. And what it made me sit back and realize is that I think, yes, in the future, a lot of the work is going to come back to human taste and human judgment. And in a really beautiful way, is going to be a renaissance, hopefully, of our ability to say, let go of the things that are slowing us down and sort of keeping us out of that and allow us to sit in the space of judgment and taste and design and strategy and all that, where I think a lot of people would rather spend a lot of their mental time and maybe are more useful. And so that was a glimpse into that. I thought it was really an interesting experience. So yeah, I do think that a lot of that might happen.
Yeah, I get the feeling that as a professional software developer, that the there's going to be less and less involvement in us building. Not yet, maybe, but soon there's going to be less of us building the software and more of us being architects, being
Yeah.
creative engineers,
Yep.
and then
And coordinators.
handling data flow, like especially between
Yes.
like middleware, right? And I know middleware is the least sexy topic of all time, especially considering we're talking about interfaces, which are fun, but like how you get the information in one system and another information in another system to talk to each other so that you can come up with a result that is novel and has business value is is a problem that is hairy, and I think that there's a lot of no one's losing their jobs over that just yet.
No, and I think that, like, really importantly, there was a third thing that I forgot to mention, which is the third thing that I was doing was applying my 2 decades of experience in doing this and knowing that, "Oh, I need a provisioning profile, and I have to set this up, and I'm doing OAuth, which means I need an OAuth key in that service and all of this." Those things couldn't be automated for me. And so I had to use my judgment at that level, kind of as an architect and a systems engineer, to think about like how all the pieces were coming together, where the data needed to go, how it needed to flow. And so even though I wasn't writing the code, the AI couldn't have done it by itself. I still had to pull the pieces together.
I have that's I find that I mean that is I what do I want to say here? What I want to say is I find that both uh, uplifting, right? Like that expertise still has value. Um, of course, I'm going to say that I'm also in professional services, and if expertise doesn't have any value, then I'm out of a job too. So are you. But it kind of brings me back to this, and we've come back to this a couple times, which is then how do you train the next generation of people to do the job, to learn that expertise? And this topic of what interfaces could look like has given me an interesting kind of idea, and I want to run something past you here. When I was young, and we're talking 20, no, oh God, it's been 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I used to teach computer science. Oh, I'm so old. 30 years. My first job was I taught computer science. I taught programming to adults and kids. And when I taught it to kids, we used Logo.
Yeah,
Do you remember Logo?
I remember logo.
So those of you who don't know, like Logo is a visual programming language for kids. Well, it was. I think there's still a type of Logo out there.
MIT, I think, right?
Yeah. And the idea was you would move this tortoise around a maze by typing in commands like these go-to commands like turn left, turn right, and like you try and solve things with loops and different types of what doesn't matter. The point is the concepts that you learned to move this tortoise around this track were designed to teach people the concepts of designed to teach kids the concepts of programming. The interface, right, was not actually the thing that like you were going to be using these concepts in.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I had so my last thing to like throw out, eh, in to you is what if there is still 10 years from now? What if there are thriving interfaces, like thriving, hugely important interfaces, but they are simulations of like how to because we are visual creatures and they're giving us force feedback in a way to like learn some of the mechanical sympathy about like how something should work so that when we do eventually just drop that interface and we go back to talking to the machine, we have those structures in our minds like how the tortoise moves around the track. How's
Very
that?
interesting.
I don't know if this
Very
is
interesting. Very interesting. I I mean, yes.
maybe.
I think it's entirely possible. I think the takeaway here, if you're listening to this, and granted, this has meandered a little bit more into some of the more techno theory and whatever than we normally do, but I think the takeaway here is this: if you're listening to this and you've gotten through this amount of this, is that don't assume that your business is going to run on the same stack and the same technology and the same software and all the stuff that it does today in 5 years or 10 years. It's going to change. There are massive advantages. Each of those eras that I talked about going through, the people who leapt into that next era, and it comes with pain of change. It comes with experimentation costs. It comes with there is a cost to being an early adopter. Absolutely. But those people ended up being poised generally better competitively and than the folks that stay behind. And I think that this switch is another call to action for that.
Yeah, and I agree and would like to add on one more thing, which is that if you are listening to this and you're thinking about building some sort of new software, that you might want to reconsider the idea of like a website or something that you move a mouse around and you click on things and you use icons and representations and you type things into text fields, that there might be a different way. Justin and I were talking to somebody yesterday where the MVP of his product is going to be a thing that no one ever sees. It's going to live inside of Copilot, inside of his company. His employees are going to interface with the software through Copilot, which is installed in their Microsoft 365 stack. So when they go and open up Copilot on their desktop, that's where the software will live. That's the only interface it has.
Yeah.
And what it does is behind the scenes is a bunch of data and tools that go and do stuff and bring the people that information. And I think that might be, we've built one like this before, two like this before, one with Microsoft Teams, one with Slack, right? Where that's the only interface. People are like in the tool that they use to talk to their coworkers all day long, also talks to a machine and brings them answers. And it brings them spreadsheets.
Yep.
So,
I mean, it's a great example of it. It's a great example of it. We're already seeing it happen. Yep. The collapse of the interface.
Well, hopefully, Justin, what this leads to is you and I are old enough where we designed interfaces in like Photoshop or something and like with slices, and we would like, here's the round corner, we'd cut them up and then we'd export them. And that like, especially like I would say mid 90s was the height, the pinnacle of like weird interface design because there was no rules and you had like a blank canvas. And so people made things when you were talking about like representational interfaces, like I think I built a thing where not just was like to like it was a house and it was a room, and you'd click on the book, and that would like open up, and we could just maybe we're heading back to some weird version of that as well.
I think actually we will, because I think what we're about to do with AI tools, once they get into the general public's hands and they get good enough, is we're about to hand a bunch of artists who previously couldn't afford art supplies. We're handing them the biggest palette in the world and saying, like, go create. And I think we're going to see some incredible, amazing things.
Yeah. I actually am making the opposite point. My point,
Oh,
my point is that, and I'm with you 100%. But my point is that, like, if everyone is able to make these things all the time, and we're all used to seeing the same kinds of interfaces, that stuff that stands out and just is like weird or looks different might actually start to become a competitive advantage again.
interesting again, right?
I have no idea if that's true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that is true. I think that is true. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
the takeaway here is, don't worry about interfaces. Everything's going to look the same. You're going to talk to a chatbot, and also worry about interfaces.
And also
You're gonna
log
go
on the interface.
completely insane, crazy things that might end up training our next generation on how to do stuff, and they'll be completely creative. Thank you. This has been super useful. At least I've
Yeah.
gotten a lot to think about.
I don't know if it's been useful, but it's at least a fun thing to think about
Well, I
on a
enjoyed
Friday
it.
afternoon.
And thank you, everyone who's listening or watching us. I hope you enjoyed this. Tune in same time next week, I think, probably,
Something like that.
for more deep insights, like interfaces may matter or may not matter.
That's right. Make sure to add to your library, set your DVRs, don't miss an episode.
All right, my friend. It was
We'll
good to
see
see
you.
you. I'll speak to you soon.
All right.
Take
See you,
care, man.
everybody.
Bye.